Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Securing Your Enterprise with the Zero Trust Security Framework, a step-by-step guide presented by Aite Group Senior Analyst, Alissa Knight. I'm Siobhan Scanlon, and I'll be one of your Aite Group hosts for today's webinar. We'll be starting the webinar shortly, but first, let me take care of just a few housekeeping items. Today's session will be recorded, and a link to view the webinar on demand will be available to all Aite Group clients of our cybersecurity practice. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to submit your questions using the questions feature located in the GoToWebinar toolbar to the right of your screen. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Alissa Knight is a senior analyst with Aite Group's cybersecurity practice.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you brought your sense of humor. As I said in my tweet this morning, if you've attended any of my previous webinars in the past or seen any of my YouTube videos, I bring the comedy and the energy. So life is short, might as well have fun with it. In any case, I'm Alissa Knight. Thank you for the introduction, Siobhan. Today we are going to be talking about zero trust and what exactly is it. Raise your hand right now if you think that zero trust is a new concept. Haha, just kidding, I can't see you. The funny thing is, some of you probably raised your hand with those little plastic covers on your camera. No, I cannot see you. It was my joke, making sure everyone is awake. No, so zero trust is not a new concept. It is just a marketing term thrown at something that we should have been doing all along. And it's very similar to defense in depth. And it's exactly what everyone should have been doing. But for some reason, we don't really rally around a concept unless we've given it a name. So today's webinar is brought to you by Ovaltine. Just kidding. Thought this was funny. Today we're going to cover what zero trust is. We're going to talk about how to actually build a zero trust framework and what those individual layers look like, as well as zero trust solutions that are available to you that operate at those different layers of the ZT stack. And then we're going to do Q&A. One of the things I do want to mention is that today we will be doing some polls. So please weigh in. These questions were not given to me by marketing. I came up with the questions because, being just in the industry every day, getting my hands dirty with this technology, I want to know these things from the end users. Let me know the answers to these questions. I really want to know. So again, just really quickly about me, I'm a 20-year veteran of cybersecurity as a recovering hacker, failing at that miserably. Right now I'm hacking APIs, so it's kind of hard to actually be a fully recovered hacker, I think. I'm always trying to break things. I've always believed that what can be built by humans can be broken by humans. I am the unanalyst. If you haven't noticed, I am an atypical analyst. I don't like to publish regurgitated sales material on technology. I don't read vendor PDFs and then go write a report on it. I want to disrupt the analyst industry with hands-on technical analysis, consulting, and technology validation. So, I want to make sure that the technology is doing exactly what the marketing material says it's going to do. I think you as buyers, you as security engineers, you as CISOs want that. You want that in the reports that you're reading. You want that in the research you're digesting. Getting past all the sales and marketing fluff and getting down to the plumbing of it and making sure it's actually working. I am a serial entrepreneur. I did start and sell 2 previous cybersecurity startups. I am the board member over at Breyer & Thorn on the board of directors, and I don't like to be bored, so I'm in so many different things. I have recently actually gone back to Temple University. Yes, I am a high school dropout, but I'm going back to school. I've sort of feel like I've mastered the business world. Now I'm going to go back to school and see what they know. To quote from It's a Wonderful Life. Anyway, I am a published author on hacking connected cars. I recently moved back from Stuttgart, Germany, where I was working with several of the large automobile manufacturers out there on hacking connected cars, telematics control units, ECUs, and I'm literally have written the book on hacking connected cars. So that's me. Connect with me on different social media networks. Follow me on Twitter add me on LinkedIn, connect with me on YouTube. I have a vlog. I do a regular podcast with Aite Radio and LeetSpeak. I have an Instagram, a Facebook. I have an email account. Admittedly, don't check that nearly as often as I should. And yeah, certain people hate that. Yes, the best way to get me is actually Skype as well. So feel free to add me on P2P as well. Instant message. This is the cybersecurity team. Like I said, we're a small band. My fearless leader, Gwen Bazard, is the research director and co-founder of Aite Group. I focus in ML and AI, threat intelligence, network and endpoint security, identity and access management, cloud virtualization, container stuff, monitoring and orchestration, endpoint detection response, all those things. So all of the soup de jours of 2019 is my focus. I don't really like to cover Me Too companies. I do know we do have some vendors in the audience today. So, if you are in the audience, you probably know this about me. If you've talked to me or worked with me in the past, I just don't like covering things that aren't sexy. I do not want to talk to you if you are a legacy network IDS. That's not me. I'm all about network threat analysis, security orchestration, any kind of new sort of disrupting technology, like the boys and girls over at Sentinel One and all this new fancy, shiny new toys that are happening out there within that stack. So let's talk about why we're here, and that's Zero Trust. Zero Trust is a security model where there's no inherent trust of anyone or anything. One of the things that you guys will find when you go out there and Google this is that ZT is zero trust of devices and people, but I actually expand that to include data and applications. And why? It's because today with APIs, which I'll be publishing research and vulnerabilities in soon, we also have this trust relationship between our data and applications, and that really needs to be part of the Zero Trust stack. So I break Zero Trust into 3 different buckets or categories, and that's intranet, extranet, and internet. And that's within the intranet, we've all heard the discussion that the edge really doesn't exist anymore. And that's very true. The perimeter that we are trying to defend, the barbarians at the gate, that gate is gone. And at one point it extended to it extended to Starbucks. Now it extends to the software-defined perimeter of people's mobile devices. And if you've followed any of my recent research lately that I've published, you'll know that a lot of the vulnerabilities that I recently published were in mobile apps. And more and more consumers are using their mobile phones for things that they historically used their web browser and desktop for. The number of laptop sales are continuing to decline and give way to an increase in the purchases of mobile phones and tablets. People don't want to lug around their big laptops anymore. They want to be able to pull their phone out, send someone money with the push of an app, or do banking all from their mobile phone. So, this trust, at least within the intranet, extranet, and internet, is across the board. Zero trust of devices, zero trust of data, zero trust of applications, and containers and all that fun stuff, and zero trust of people inside the edge. So the big thing here is, just because you're an employee of the organization doesn't mean we should trust you. From a cybersecurity perspective, from an IT risk management perspective, it doesn't mean we automatically should trust you. And so that's really what we're getting at here in zero trust. And it also extends to the extranet. So third-party connections with suppliers, vendors that need access into our intranet, that need access into servers in our DMZ. Just because they are a third-party supplier or vendor doesn't mean we should trust them. Same thing on the internet. Not just the zero trust of those individuals and applications and assets, but also no trust of the SaaS providers, zero trust of Salesforce, of our HRMS, whatever may be running in the cloud. Zero trust of the cloud storage drives that are out there and cloud service providers. So it's really just not trusting anything at all. And how do we actually go about doing that? Through the tenets of zero trust is really what I break down into 7 steps. And that's first doing asset identification. You can't protect what you don't know you have. I say that in every single conference I speak at. I say that all the time when I'm speaking to people. You need to do asset identification. I'm going to say it. It had to be said. You can troll me if you want, but I believe that risk assessments are just as important as penetration tests. I firmly believe that. You need to understand what assets you have. And dare I say it's even more important than a penetration test. Let me tell you why. Because if you are only hiring penetration testers, either outside consultants or internal red team, you are limited by the exploits that you have, meaning that you have a finite amount of time to do that penetration test, and you're doing reconnaissance, you're doing exploitation. The stakeholders, the ones ingesting the output of that penetration test, the results of that pen test, typically will only care about the things that you exploited, that you got a foothold on, that, the credentials that you harvested, the domain admin accounts that you were able to compromise, whatever it may be. But what about the things that you didn't have exploits for? What about those things that are centered around unacceptable risk to the business that aren't necessarily identified in exploitation and post-exploitation? You need to know what applications you're running in your environment, the traffic directionality, the ports and protocols they use. This is a big thing. You as a CISO, you as a security engineer charged with protecting the IT environment of the organization, you can't sufficiently protect that if you don't know what's running. If you want to implement ZT, especially when you're talking about network segmentation, you can't effectively do that if you don't know what applications are talking to each other and what systems are talking to each other. You must do asset identification as the first step. The next step, I would say, is network segmentation. And what network segmentation is I really consider that to be 2 different things. You can do hardware network segmentation and software. Now, the segmentation of your network involves the creation of enclaves within the intranet based on functionality, role, or resource access needs. I want to say this very clear. I want to be abundantly clear. Network segmentation is not VLANing. I've had individuals come to me and say, "Oh, we have VLANs, and we have printers that are on different CIDR blocks," and that's my attempted British accent. We have these things like, on 10 nets and 192, and things are on different CIDR blocks, but there's no VACLs. There's no firewall rules. There's none of these things to prevent certain VLANs from talking to each other, certain assets from talking to each other, certain applications from talking to each other. There's no segmentation. If you're building SCID equipment, if your physical security devices, your database servers, and all of that fun stuff, and all your in-scope PCI assets are all are all accessible from all the same devices from each other, and there's no filtering being done on what can talk to what, and it's all on the corporate environment, it's not segmented. It doesn't matter if it's on different IP networks. It doesn't matter if it's in different CIDR blocks. It's not segmentation unless you can control what can talk to what. So this is done typically with firewalls or ACLs, VACLs, VLAN access control lists. And like I said, there's 2 ways to do this. I do not believe that network segmentation is possible in an already existing environment. Anything's possible, yes, but does it make sense? No. I mean, when you've got hundreds of locations, hundreds of thousands of employees, and you're talking about a network that's existed for for, dozens of years, for decades. How do you do that at a hardware level with, Cisco switches or whatever it may be? That's really difficult to accomplish. So there's software-based segmentation now with some really cool tech coming out of companies like Unisys with their Stealth product, some shiny new toys doing this at a software level where you use agents out at the endpoints to create these segments within an already existing network, or these enclaves within a pre-existing network. And the neat thing of solutions like Unisys is they're actually doing something called device cloaking or asset cloaking, where they're darkening assets as if they don't exist, which you pen testers out there, you can see where I'm going with this. It's going to suck really bad if you're doing a penetration test and you're sending packets to an IP and you're not getting any responses. Imagine a bunch of half-open SYN connections and a massive recon effort. That's not going to be fun. So we'll talk about that as well. Authorization, which is not authentication. What is the user application device authorized to access? When are they authorized to access it? Why are they authorized to access it? And how are they accessing it? These are all very important questions that we need to address. It's 2019 and there's a lot of organizations that still don't see the distinction between authentication and authorization. Just because you've authenticated, just because you have valid credentials, does not necessarily mean you're authorized or should be authorized to access that particular data or resource. Just because I'm an employee of, McDonald's, and we'll pick on McDonald's for a minute, and, I have valid credentials into the domain, I have valid AD credentials and I'm authenticated, that doesn't necessarily mean I should be authorized to access HR files or even, the secret recipe for the Big Mac secret sauce. It's authorization versus authentication, data loss prevention, identification of where the data actually is, where it should and should not go, and monitoring where it went. That's a very important facet as well on DLP. So, I've met numerous CISOs where they have this incredibly sensitive data, this very sensitive crown jewel in the kingdom that they don't have DLP around. And a lot of things that you guys need to understand is that in an APT attack, an advanced persistent threat attack, or any sort of, breach situation where you have humans on the network exfiltrating data, a lot of times they don't get the data off of the server that's even running DLP. It's been copied to so many different shared folders by employees or copied to so many different workstations that hackers just pull it off of other machines where there's no DLP. So have a very fleshed out, very comprehensive DLP plan and solution in place. There's some cool technology in the DLP space and newer players that are really reimagining what DLP is, and we'll talk about that. Authentication, again, is authenticating the user application or device, authenticating what they know, what they have, and or who they are. I'm still trying to comprehend this. Why is it that when we go to a cloud SaaS platform app and we create an account, it could just be some random, no one's heard of this SaaS startup that really gets security. They don't just ask for username and password when you're creating an account. They ask if you have a Yubico key, do you have a third-party MFA device? Are you running Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator? All of these things. Yet when we go create an account or log in at a bank, there's no question of, okay, we require multi-factor authentication. Do you have an MFA device like a Yubico key? Do you have these things to really strengthen your accounts with multi-factor or two-factor? It's just what username and password do you want to use? So authentication, specifically multi-factor authentication, is critical. And maintaining confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. Having some sort of data at rest encryption and data at rest in transit solution in place. And finally, detection and response. And we'll talk about this as well. We've now got SOAR solutions, security orchestration and response, network threat analysis, endpoint detection response, some really cool new stuff on the endpoint and on the network that we'll talk about, as well as on the monitoring side. So, build it and she will come. Let's talk about the approach to implementing zero trust. Hopefully everyone is with me. Everyone's cool at this point. We've talked about what zero trust is. We've talked about the tenets of zero trust and what that actually encompasses. Now let's talk about actually how to implement it. The right people, devices, and applications have the right level of access to the right resources and the right context that is assessed continuously. That is the definition of zero trust. Ensuring all of those things. And the thing about that quote that I love the most is the assessed continuously part. And I think too many of us really think that cybersecurity is point-in-time security, where we've thrown money at the problem, we've implemented X, Y, Z, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing best practice, but we forget about it. It's set it and forget it. And that really can't be what cybersecurity is. It needs to continuously be monitored, continuously improved, and just tracking KPIs. How many of you actually have KPIs set, right? Key performance indicators. How many of you actually have KPIs? How many of you can find good material out there on cybersecurity KPIs? I think the last time I Googled it, I found maybe 2 good resources. One was behind a paywall that you had to pay to get access to because it was, a research report or something. And the other one was just an article in a news publication. So there's very little stuff out there about KPIs and making sure that you continuously assess that security is a plan, do, check, act, or PDCA lifecycle and OODA loop that's continuously assessed and continuously improved over time. That's cybersecurity according to moi. Anyway, okay, so the approach. First step is identify, maintain, and perform a risk analysis of your assets, including the data. Know what assets you have, know which ones have an unacceptable risk to the business that need to be treated. Have a risk assessment policy and procedure. If you don't have one, go out there, hire a consulting firm to create it for you. There's a lot of great stuff out there on creating a risk assessment and risk treatment process. This is all ISO 27001 stuff, guys and gals. This is all ISO 27K stuff. Performing risk assessments, having your different control groups, all of this stuff is standards framework stuff. Segment your users' applications and workloads using software-defined microsegmentation or hardware on-prem and cloud workloads. Again, we're no longer in the age of castle and moat security architecture, guys. We need to understand that data is everywhere. It's on mobile devices, it's on tablets, it's walking around in public Wi-Fi in hotels, it's in AWS, it's in Azure, it's in Salesforce, it's everywhere. How do you implement hardware-based segmentation on your on-prem switches in a situation like that? You don't. I believe, in my humble opinion, my 2 cents is that the only real effective way you can do this is with identity-based segmentation or software-based segmentation. And that's what a lot of these solutions like Stealth are attempting to implement. Implementing IAM, identity access management, MFA for users, applications, devices, and authorization solutions. Yes, there are, believe it or not, solutions out there in the MFA space that provide multi-factor authentication for devices, for applications. So look into it. You definitely need to make sure it's part of your security plan. So protect your data at rest and in transit using endpoint and network DLP. This is, of course, important. Encryption and making sure that you are doing something with your data. Okay, our first poll. Are you ready for this? Are you sitting down? Because I want to make sure you're sitting down. Another thing, hopefully you guys aren't multitasking. I know some of you are. Don't do it. Put Outlook down. Stop writing emails. Pay attention. This is probably one of the best webinars you'll ever sit in all year, maybe even the whole decade. Yes. I'm that good. Anyway, have you begun investing in building a ZT stack at your company? If so, what layers? Have you implemented network? Have you implemented endpoint? Have you implemented mobile? Or all of the above? So let's do a quick poll. Siobhan will fire up the questions on your screen. Take a few moments here to pause and make sure that you guys are doing that. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to point that out. Now, are you doing all of them? It's okay if you guys are changing some of your controls out. If you've just come into the job and you hate the antivirus software that's installed currently and you're ripping it out and putting in EDR because you believe that antivirus and legacy AV is dead and you want nothing but machine learning in your network, then that's okay. Just put network down, put endpoint down, even if you're changing those controls out. But let me know. I'm very interested to find out where you guys are at on this.
All right, Alissa, we've gone ahead and ended the poll, and it looks like 62% of our attendees chose all of the above, followed by 23% at network and 15% with endpoint, and nobody chose mobile.
Okay, so we've got our answers at this point. Awesome. I did not expect these answers at all. Thank you for taking your time to answer them. All right, let's move on. So the actual solution matrix, the solutions that could potentially fit very nicely in each layer of the ZT stack for all of you. I do want to make it clear that none of these companies are specifically being endorsed by us because they've paid us in any way to endorse them or anything like that. It's just companies that I'm looking into, that I'm researching. A very common question I get from people is, hey, what have you looked at? What's cool out there? Who's doing it right? That is my job. That is what I do, is play with these technologies, drive the mouse, do the installations, set up and implement the architecture, design the architecture. This is what I do. So I thought that something that would be very valuable to you is imparting my experience on you on what I've come across in these different layers. So let's first start with asset management. In asset management, you're really answering the question of what assets do I have? Where are those assets located? How are my assets configured? Who uses them? At what cost? And what are the risks with those assets? And there's several companies out there that are doing this, that have great asset management solutions. ServiceNow is a company I'm actually a huge fan of. They're doing some really cool things with asset management in their ITSM platform. They just actually launched a new security analytics platform, SOAR solution. So take a look at it. They're doing some really neat things. A lot of your organizations are probably running ServiceNow for ticketing and stuff like that. So, asset management at ServiceNow is definitely an option. So for other companies, those also include SolarWinds, Pulseway, and SAMANAGE. BMC is doing some stuff as well. In the authentication space, you're going to be looking for multi-factor authentication solutions, trusting users and devices and applications that they access, safeguarding against vulnerable or compromised devices, and single sign-on. In the authentication area, you've got Duo, you've got Okta. There's a great company out there that is in startup mode. That's Trusona. The neat thing about Trusona is they've come up with this technology where you can they actually track where you put your finger on the glass, the coordinates on the glass where you push the button, and have virtually eliminated man-in-the-middle attacks that prevents if a hacker who may have captured that packet or captured that data, that authentication data, and is trying to replay it, that they believe that it's virtually impossible for a person to go in there and put their finger in the same exact spot, same exact location, same exact time, same exact everything. I think they even track how hard you push, the actual pressure on the glass. It's crazy. It's crazy, wicked, crazy stuff. So check it out. Yubico, of course, is in this area. Strongkey, they're doing some cool things, as well as Cyberark with their platform. Authorization, this is role-based access control. Data protection based on your actual need to access it, classifying that data, classification of data no matter where it is, if it's on-prem, in the cloud, SaaS, and performing a data risk assessment. There's some players here like Varonis and Ping Identity. Varonis is pretty interesting, where they've built this solution that actually tracks and allows you to control who has access to what in your shared folders. Say you've got, on-prem file servers and you want to control, I think they use OUs and Active Directory, or it depends on what OU you're a member of within AD, but they control access to that data and actually allow you to track who has accessed that data. They provide some great incident response forensics information in the case of a breach. Citrix, Ping Identity also plays in this space as well. On the data loss prevention side, we have Exabeam, we have Imperva, Digital Guardian. The neat thing happening over at Privitar that I've been looking at recently is that they're sort of reimagining what DLP is. And the neat thing here is that they're allowing you to take that data, instead of just encrypting all of it data at rest, making it really impossible to search on and manipulate and do stuff with. Privitar is taking the individual columns of data in that database and making it available to the individuals and departments that need access to it, and anonymizing or sanitizing or encrypting the other fields that they don't necessarily need access to. It's really interesting. Take a look at it. It's an outfit out of Europe, startup out of Europe. They're doing some really neat things in DLP and changing the way DLP is actually looked at. Digital Guardian has a DLP solution. McAfee, I believe, just acquired a DLP company. Zscaler. So yeah. Network segmentation. I don't know what it is, but I'm just drunk on network segmentation lately. I'm having dreams about network segmentation companies. I'm very drunk on the Unisys solution. I'm intoxicated by Stealth. Very neat stuff happening over there. I'm going to be publishing some research on it. I'm going to be doing a market report that will be featuring Unisys, Illumio, Cisco plays in this area, 2FIN, Tempered Networks. Excuse me. So doing quite a few things in this area. It's my focus of research at the moment. In network segmentation, again, identity-defined network segmentation is the name now. It's really where things are headed. It's really interchangeable with software-based segmentation, microsegmentation, but again, it's based on the identity of the individual or device that needs access to what. Mapping application data transmission directionality, ports and protocols. That's a tough task. There have been situations, like I said, where I've called vendors and have asked them, hey, what ports and protocols does your application use? And they don't know, or they don't have a PDF they can send me. It's shocking. I don't understand how a lot of vendors out there can operate not knowing what different ports and protocols are needed by their app. In any case, solutions like Stealth and some of the other solutions out there will help you in doing this. Stealth has a really sexy product. Unisys has a really sexy product. You need to go check it out if you haven't yet. Detection and response, again, this is going to encompass EDR, SOAR, the SIM players, as well as network threat analysis. This is the Sentinel One. Sentinel Ones of the world. I got to tell you, Sentinel One is definitely doing EDR right. They're doing a lot of really cool things over there. They basically subscribe to the same school of thought that I do, that security without context is really it's ineffectual. You just because you see a specific pattern doesn't necessarily mean it could be bad. For example, why do I care about an IIS Unicode attack against an Apache server? That's context, right? the neat thing about Sentinel One is they've created this concept of process heritage and storytelling, where if you're investigating something, you can actually trace what process PID was created by what process. If I've breached a machine, I'm in an interpreter shell, and I've hijacked a process, and I hijack another process and laterally move across processes, Sentinel One can actually track that. It's really interesting. Take a look at Sentinel One. If you haven't yet and you're looking at EDR, definitely take a look at what they're doing. So yeah, Sentinel One, cool stuff. Silence, Endgame, Cyber Reason, those other players. I think Silence was just acquired by BlackBerry, so it's like BlackBerry Silence. But you also have ServiceNow. Again, it was come out with a new platform in the SOAR and the security analytics space. Swimlane is a great SOAR solution as well. Been talking with them. IBM QRadar in the SIM space, and ExtraHop in the network threat analysis space. You've got Lastline, you've got Vectra, you've got these other really cool things. Okay, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to get my car keyed for saying this probably, but I believe intrusion detection is dead. You can flame me for it, whatever. I don't care. I'm confident in myself. Yes. I believe legacy network intrusion detection is officially dead. It's all about network threat analysis at this point, or NTA. The machine learning proxy world, I don't care. I know that there's people out there saying that ML is just more marketing. No, it's not. ML is actually pretty freaking sexy. It's pretty cool. If you haven't adopted an ML-powered solution and seen the kind of event fatigue and noise that it helps to eliminate, you need to. I just released an ML paper called Titan AI. The major ML players in the network EDR and monitoring space. Kenna Security is using machine learning to actually predict the future and make determinations using ML on the potential weaponization of vulnerabilities into an exploit. Crazy stuff. We're done. Yeah, you've survived my webinar. One thing I do want to talk about is my related research. I have published previous reports that you guys might want to take a look at. They are behind the paywall, so if you're a client, you should have a login. The top 10 trends in cybersecurity report I gave, as well as the webinar, is not behind the paywall. So if you want to watch that webinar and take a look at that, it's a great report on what I believe are the trends in 2019 regarding cybersecurity. If you went to the RSA conference this year, you'll see that a lot of those technologies do fall within these buckets. So I think my predictions are actually going to end up being quite accurate. I'm usually never right. Just kidding. I'm right all the time. All right, just kidding. All right, so this is how you can partner with Aite Group. We do regular podcasts. We do webinars like this. We're going to be doing more of them. Again, I'm really trying to transform the industry and what research looks like. And I do believe that all of you are ingesting information differently now. It's, the 90-page reports are important, yes, but what about the podcasting? What about the video? What about, all of those things are all communication mediums that we really want to move towards delivering our research through. So check out my vlog, check out our vlog, check out our YouTube channel, check out our podcast, check out our webinars, read our reports. And, if you need assistance, if you need the white glove treatment and handholding in this, talk to us about possibly consulting with you. That is the one and only time I will talk about any sort of biz dev stuff. Again, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. This is a quick summary of who we are. And this is how you can contact me. Again, reach out to me, aknight@aitegroup.com. That is actually my mobile number. So if any of you actually want to pay the long distance charges or actually have the extra free time to stalk me and call and hang up or whatever you're going to do, fine, that's on you. If you really have that kind of time, do it. Otherwise, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to call me. You know, I'm a big proponent of the fact that we rely way too much on email these days. So I really believe we need to start picking up the phone and talking to people more. Just low tech in that way, I guess. So it's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate all of you joining us today. I will hand it off to Siobhan to close us out. Thank you, everyone.
I really appreciate the webinar today, Alissa. All the insights were great, and we want to thank all of our attendees for joining today's webinar. As a reminder, a recording of today's webinar will be available on demand. Look for an email from Aite Group Webinars to be sent out within the next 24 to 48 hours with more details on how to view today's webinar. Again, if you have any questions about today's webinar topic or would like additional information about any of our other Aite Group services, please email us at info@aitegroup.com. That concludes today's webinar. Thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.